Hello, another day, another update. This is 0.5.8 and there's a whole bunch of things. First, there's a bit of a redesign on the parameters area. You can show only map parameters with this button, and you can search, and you can clear the search. And drumroll, you can also show the last clicked value, and that of course goes for the when you click a plugin as well. So I'm sure you're gonna be happy about that. There's an option here if you have this enabled and you search, that it will clear that text field, but it's disabled as a default. And then we can go to the next thing, which is a whole new feature, and I think maybe unique for this type of application, or like for this modulator thing. It's a floating mapper. So if I enable that under mapping and I click anywhere on my plugin or in plugin, I will see a floating mapper, and the floating mapper will show the last click parameter and whatever modulator is connected, and we can also see what other things that modulator is controlling. And of course we can go here and change on that. So it's a bit clearer way of having this, and basically it means that if you like working with your actual plugins, we could hide the plugins area and the parameters area, because now we can just click here and we get the last click parameter that we can manipulate. And you could also argue that we could remove the modules panel, because we have our modules on this button. So we get a lot more real estate now. Another really cool thing in this update is, let's take this, we want to map this, and I enable mapping here, and I click here, now it's mapped, and if I drag, I'll drag the width. You can see that here. So just from that, I map that and I map the width. I can do the same here, and this is now mapped the width. And if I stop mapping, actually we can change the position, if you look there, of a map parameter. And if we click and hold down Control, we can also change the width. So, but the big thing I would say is that we can just click here, map, and it's done. Also, mapping stays on, or like the width change, you change the width as long as you're mapping things. Also, if we are mapping once, you will see here, let's map this thing, it stopped mapping. Which leads to the next thing I want to show, which is the key commands area. I started adding key commands, and you can toggle, if you're down here, you can toggle with a key command whether it's mapping, but obviously it needs to be in focus, so but we can also do it from here. And if you look above this, we can now set modifiers. So let's not use the floating mapper. There's also settings for how to hide the floating mapper. But let's enable the parameters area again. And let's just make it a bit more simple here. Let's edit this thing. In the mapping, in the key commands, we have Alt for scroll value, and Shift for fine tuning, and we can set how fine it will adjust the amount. And we have a button for changing whether a thing is bipolar. Like that with the command. So, but you can change them to whatever you want, and you can have multiple. Let's say you want adjust width to control shift, but of course now shift is also fine adjust. So anyway, play around with that. And then I've actually done, now this is not scrolled by the default way, but I coded the way it's scrolling, so you can also change the scrolling speed. And you can enable vertical scrolling. So if I scroll up now, I'm scrolling like a normal scroll. I use a trackpad. Now I can scroll here. And we have a few different settings for this. We can scroll only at the top of and button. So I'm scrolling here or down here, but I can't scroll in here, which is because we probably have some modules that need scrolling there. Another thing we can also do is we can only scroll with a specific modifier. So now I'm scrolling up and down, nothing happens. If I hold down super or like command, it's scrolling. And we can also set the speed of that. So there's that. We have a setting for, if we go to layout, we can now decide how big the visualizer output is. We have 3 different sizes. This is already working towards whenever we're gonna have a lot more outputs from a modulator. I've done that already, so it's ready for us to use. And then there's another little detail. We can choose only to map things positively. So if I was gonna map here, click this, it's a bit clearer if I show the extra line below. Now I can only scroll down to 0. So it's not even like this is bipolar, but I'm not able to scroll it negatively. Obviously, when you have one that's already mapped with a negative, it looks a bit weird. But now it's like with this thing, it will only do a actually if I do this, you can see that all the way down is all the way down there. There's a bunch more layout stuff, but I think you will find that by yourself. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed.